Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I want to talk about Star Trek Seekers, Volume 3, Long Shot by David Mack. I just got done reading this tome a little while ago, and it was absolutely awesome. I mean, it was a whirlwind of adventure, and it's synonymous with the Star Trek Seekers brand, as well as its precursor, Star Trek Vanguard, which was a novel series I absolutely loved and adored, and is very much living on and continuing with certain characters that were featured in that series in the Star Trek Seekers tomes. And yeah, this was just freaking awesome. Of course, we're following around the starship Sagittarius as commanded by Clark Terrell, who you might recognize from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And this is very much precursor to that, taking place in sort of post-TOS era by several months. The entirety of the Vanguard saga had coincided with the timeline of the original series, all 3 seasons, and now has subsequently gone on beyond that in the Seekers series, which followed on the aftermath of Vanguard when it came to a close. And basically the Seekers series involves 2 ships, the Endeavour and the Sagittarius. In this particular novel, we're focusing solely on the Sagittarius, as they are basically pimped out on this planet. Everyone gets to sort of let their hair down, even though they are doing scientific, studies of this particular planet, see if it's ripe for colonization or not. And all of a sudden they start getting this weird energy reading where there's this planet, Anura. The alien culture on this particular world, some of its scientists, they call themselves Astarans, the species, I guess, but some of their scientists have tried to tap into dark energy and dark matter and tried to create sort of a quantum generator which is meant to propel this matter as a viable fuel source. And something goes wrong. I'm not going to say what, so as not to spoil the story, but its chief scientist loses control of it. And suddenly the factors of improbability spill out of this thing and madness ensues all across this planet. Things like, you have this woman who's in a tavern with her daughter, and she is throwing darts, and every single one she's getting dead on, dead center of the dartboard. And she does this like 7 times in a row. She's gotten a crowd building around her. Everyone's starting to take bets. And suddenly her deadbeat husband comes in and he's like, look, here's how it's going to go, baby. You make 3 more shots, make it 10 total, and I'm going to lead out of your life from here on out. The only way you will ever know I exist is I'll send you payments for our kid. The child is there, as I say, with her. Or you're leaving. If you lose, if you miss any of these shots, anything but dead center, you leave. And because of the improbability, her life is renewed. The joy of her life is renewed with her and her daughter being rid of him. And, that's just one positive example. Another semi-positive example might be this particular chef. And the species, by the way, is described almost as though they are kind of, humanoid and very frog-like. They have 3 eye stalks atop their head, but they have these vocal air sacs that they expand, and that's how they breathe and all that kind of stuff. And no 2 of them are apparently alike. They all vary in the way they look and such like that, their colorization and scales or what have you. But you have this chef of this, high-class, very posh eatery, kind of just tired of his particular lot in life. He's thinking, maybe I would have been better, and maybe I would be better to go off and open my own restaurant instead of having to boss people around, these people who I can't even depend on. They're not really carrying the weight of, what I need them to in this position. And the improbability effect, flash freezes on a stovetop, newly lit, the water that was supposed to be boiled into a giant chunk of ice. And he takes that as a heavenly sign, I'm out of here. That's it. I'm going to open my place. Anyone wants to come with me, come along. And these are just 2 of the more positive effects, whereas the tantamount negative effects it has through the course of the temporal side of it, where the cause and effect can go backward and forward in time. Because this thing has been active in the present, it can still affect millions of years in the past, so as to redirect asteroids that are going to impact a space station that is in orbit around the planet in one case. And when the Sagittarius, some of its crew are down on the planet trying to find their way to the hub of this generator to try to shut it down and find ways of being retroactive with what it's doing, all the havoc it's causing, you have the Sagittarius up in orbit with the rest of the crew, and they're going to save these people, these astronauts aboard the space station, because they have, run out of options. And once they've sort of quelled the whole asteroid thing, well, then suddenly there's going to be like a solar event, where just all hell is going to break loose, effectively. And it's like every single step of the way, every little bit of progress they make in trying to figure out what is going on with this machine, this device, trying to rebound against all the improbable things that are going on. Like, every time they take a step forward, they're knocked 3 steps back. And it keeps building the tension and the momentum from chapter to chapter, giving us insights into the species and the culture and the minds of certain characters, as well as, the Sagittarius is just representative of some of my favorite species, from Orion to Vulcan, and Denobulan for fans of Enterprise. And in the case of 2 characters that are very much standout in this particular novel, you have the Orion Taro and this Tiburonian Torvin. And I really love their interactions, which builds up to the crescendo of them sharing a kiss in a moment where it seems all is lost. And it's kind of the hallmark of a pitch change for the outcome of the novel. For me, I mean, these 2 characters, David Mack is expert at making me really be drawn to these characters that he writes about. And same with his, companion writers on this series, who will be penning the next novel, Volume 4, Dayton Ward and Kevin Dillmore, all through, the Vanguard saga, very much representative in this saga as well. This burgeoning saga with only 3 volumes thus far, as of the time of this recording, they are all expert at making these characters not only relatable, but memorable. In the case of Master Chief Elucci, who is kind of, the chief engineer on board the Sagittarius, there are certain calls to, dialogue that harken right back to Animal House and John Belushi, who, of course, I'm a big fan of, and, such like that. And very much in the Vanguard saga, we had callbacks to Kevin Smith's characters, Dante and Randall from Clerks. And I love the intertwining of geek properties that I love, outside of Star Trek, being sort of referenced within it and such like that. And the references, there are other references as well. But this was just an affirming, action-packed, adventurous tome. I mean, I could visualize it all as though I was watching this epic, sweeping Star Trek film. And when you read these novels, at least for me, I mean, this is right here, the crux of the argument. Why do they always have to have Star Trek? In Star Trek films, there's a villain. There's some kind of villain that has to be bested, some con, something along those lines. When you can tell a story like this, there is no sort of tangible or personage villain. The villain, for lack of a better term, the antagonist, is an essence, is a scientific essence, something that goes beyond, the quantum imaginings, if you will. You don't need an actual bad guy, in other words, to tell a riveting, tremendous story. And that is something I come upon again and again and again, reading the works by David Mack, by Dayton Ward and Kevin Dillmore, and other Star Trek writers, the people who pen these novels. I heard them once compared to, in a very derogatory connotation, as being very much akin to just glorified fan service and fan fiction. Hardly. Because there is so much effort. I mean, I read these books, and all of the sort of technobabble Star Trek jargon flies over my head. I am a aspiring writer, and for me, it's like I get lost in the shuffle. I'm like, if I were to pen a Star Trek novel, I wouldn't know where to begin with some of the terminology, the medical terminology, and the all the mechanics of it, the machinery, and that fictional science of the warp core and how all of that energy is, run and compacted and all that kind of stuff. It goes over my head, but it is presented in such an understandable way, in such an understandable fashion, that you're not lost on it when you're reading it. And it's just tremendous to me that the work and the effort that goes into these books, the dedication, all of, Star Trek literature. I've been reading it. It kind of was the renaissance of my reading, getting back into reading novels in the last 20 or some odd years. I picked up a Star Trek novel, and that's almost exclusively all I read anymore. I mean, there are other things, but I mean, because of how much a passion I have for Star Trek, it was there from very early on in my life. It was passed down to me by my dad, and it has now been subsequently passed on from me to my sister. We both geek out about it, and when I'm reading these novels, she has yet to get into the novels, but she is always riveted and just ear to ear grinning when I'm telling her how much I love the experience of reading these books. And so I can give it no higher praise. I can give these books and books like it no higher praise. Go out and check them out. If you enjoy reading, if you are a fan of Star Trek, and even if you're not, but if you're especially a fan of Star Trek, the classic series, any of the other series, David Mack, Dave Morton, Kevin Dillmore, all of these writers, as well as other authors in the Star Trek literature medium, they cover all eras. It's not just TOS in this particular event. There are also a couple of next generation novel trilogies I've done reviews about and such like that and have enjoyed thoroughly. And I don't know, it was just an absolutely awesome experience reading this novel. And I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you stumble across this video and you're a Star Trek fan and you have read this novel, what you thought of it, if you enjoyed it as much as I did. If not, why not? Let me know in the comments below. Love having the conversation with you guys. As well as if you're a Star Trek fan but you haven't picked up a Star Trek novel, will you be giving this particular series a go? Because it is highly, highly recommended by me and is just thoroughly enjoyable. So otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.